welcome back to my channel. This is Becky. In this episode, I decided to go a different direction instead of addressing, the hot topics and getting all emotional about it because that's what they want. I am going to go switch gears back to working with some of the things that I would use to help the children. So this is a book called The Human Brain, and so I'm going to be reading this and teaching you about the human brain using some of my resources that I use with the kids. So this is Exploring Inside Your Body's Supercomputer. Welcome to your body's control center. Let's see if I can do this with you guys. So as you read this, your eyes are scanning the words and your chest moves in and out and your lungs take in and release breath. In fact, why don't we go ahead and do that? Just take a minute. Good job. All right, your chest moves in and out, so you should have felt that in your release. Your hands get ready to turn the page, and all of this is possible thanks to your body's supercomputer, the brain. The cerebrum is the front part of the brain, and it is divided into two hemispheres, the right and the left. The left controls the functions on the right side of your body, so it's the opposite, okay? What's happening on this side of the brain affects this side of the body, and then what happens on this side of the brain affects this side of the body, okay? The right controls the functions on the left side. The two parts are connected, and then they communicate with each other. There's texture, and so in this picture you can see the texture of the brain. It says in the pictures of the brain it looks lumpy, but that bumpy surface is called the cerebral cortex. The bumps that you see are called, I think this is gyri, G-Y-R-I. The grooves that you see are called the sulci, it's S-U-L-C-I. The grooves you see are the sulci. I think that's how we say it. These textures help your brain perform different functions, such as messaging. So if we look right here, it talks about messaging. Why is the brain compared to a computer? Well, it sends and it receives chemical messages. They exchange information with the rest of the body. So if you touch something hot, for example, the nerves in your hand, the nerves in your hand don't feel that. It sends the signal to your brain, and then your brain tells you what it feels like. So that's why some people can walk on hot coals and put their hands through fire, because their brain doesn't register pain from that source. I used to know someone when I was in elementary school and middle school and intermediate school that he had been born with his legs twisted in a pretzel. And so he had to have many surgeries on his legs to be able to walk. And he had these like crutches that went on his forearm. And he could put pins in his legs and not feel it because the nerves couldn't send the messages to the brain for the brain to go, oh, yep, that hurts. And so he had to be very careful because he could have, somebody could flip a cigarette butt on his lap and him not know it, and then he would get burned because he didn't even know that he was being burned. So the brain is what tells you what to feel in any situation. Your brain responds, signaling your hand to withdraw from that heat, right? And it all happens very quickly. And that's why sometimes, moms will try to tell their children, don't touch the stove, it's hot. But the child, those are just words. But when the child can feel the heat, then it's like, oh. But if that little child has never touched that fire, then that's dangerous. So we have to keep safety first always, because little brains don't always input their sensory environment properly. So we as the adults have to be hyper aware of all this types of danger. However, we do have to still let them live right? Learn through natural consequences. I'm not saying let your child, put their hand in boiling water. Like, don't do that. Okay. Nerve cells recognize heat and relay a message to the spinal cord. The brain sends the signal to the correct muscle to withdraw from that source of pain. So here the message goes to the brain for processing. And so with me, I have had spinal issues since I was small, and my father, who had taken care of me the best he could, he was disabled, and I watched him get butchered by doctors working on his spine. I mean, they even put in like an electric box and surgically implanted it into the base of his spine for pain management because he was constantly having pain signals sent up his spine. So they tried like wiring in this box into the spine, into the nervous system. And then he had this like remote thing that he could like wave over the box to turn it off and on, because he wasn't allowed to drive with it on because of the electrical current. He couldn't feel his feet. And he had diabetes and MRSA and like all kinds of things. So his body was kind of not sending the proper signals to the brain. And so I watched doctors do surgery after surgeries that really didn't. If he had known about energetics and he knew about spiritual attacks and if he knew about proper lifting, like all the things that he just didn't have the knowledge, did a lot of damage to the body that he then didn't know how to handle or repair or fix. And then the experts, were using him as a guinea pig, So, your brain gets bigger as you grow up. By the time you're an adult, it weighs around 3 pounds. Most of it is made up of fat, but it also contains water, protein, carbohydrates, and salts. So now we're going to talk primarily just about the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is the biggest part of your brain. It's located right behind your forehead. So it's right behind your forehead. This makes, it's the part of the brain that makes you, you. That's where your personality is. The frontal lobe, it controls your emotions, your ability to solve problems, as well as your actions. Are you a righty or a lefty? My dad was a lefty, but my granny had this superstition, and I don't know if it's true, that if people saw you using your left hand, that they thought you were demonic. Now again, they had very strict Pentecostal type beliefs, but she also had her Native American Cherokee teachings as well. So she had her duality with one foot in the astral and one foot on earth. So for her, life was always different from the people around her. They understood the power of one, right? They understood what religious people didn't. And so they tried to lead the way God intended instead of the way man intended, which caused obviously conflicts. But what they did with my dad is they forced him to use his right hand. So anytime he would try to use his left hand, my granny would like smack him with a wooden spoon, and and they would behavior modification before it was popular and kind. But they would force him to use his right hand because they didn't want people to think that my dad was demonic. To me, that's torture of a child, right? And making them feel bad about themselves when it wasn't necessary, but they didn't know better. So are you left-handed or right-handed? Your frontal lobe determines which hand is your dominant hand. As an adult, my dad ended up being what they call ambidextrous, which means some things he would do with his left hand and other things he would do with his right hand. It just depended on, what it was. If he was playing softball, then he would, I don't remember which one he would use. It would be different than when he was doing darts or when he was shooting guns. Like, it was different depending on what the task was. He had a bow and arrow, crossbows, compound bows, he had all kinds of different things that he would do. And so it just depended on the task. But it didn't make him evil. So let me just put that out there. Just do it. While you're reading this, are you thinking of something else? Your frontal lobe controls your attention and your motivation. It helps organize your plans, your thoughts, and your activities. So if you damage that frontal lobe, right, that's going to impact those abilities. It also helps you with your empathy, which we need so much more of in this world. And not the dark kind. Okay, the people that prey on your pain. No. That's not okay. If your friend is having a hard time, do you offer to help? And if so, thank your frontal lobe. It's the part of your brain in charge of empathy, the ability to share another's feelings. When I say dark empath is usually someone, because I'm an empath, I'm a super empath, and I understand the dark and the light. So what they will do is they will appear in your face to be very kind, caring, loving, I'm here for you, and you fully believe what you're seeing. But really what it is they've tapped into your wounds, and they know how to manipulate what you're seeing in order for them to use you to get what they want from you. Tough lessons to learn. All right. And then the funny stuff, your frontal lobe is responsible for your sense of humor. People don't understand how me and my kids can, go through traumatic situation after traumatic situation after traumatic, and we develop a sense of humor. You have to, because this is a prison planet that we pretend isn't a prison planet. So, but that's all changing now. Speaking, your frontal lobe is the part of your brain that processes language. That means you rely on this part of your brain to speak and to understand words. So when someone is having a difficult time learning how to speak and communicate, it's usually because there's something inflamed or, something that's going on in that frontal lobe. And honestly, a lot of it can be due with the nutrition, because what they feed us is not stuff that this human body, this carbon-based body, should be taking in. It's not designed to process the chemicals that they say are food, which then impacts the brain's ability to function properly. So nutrition, health, exercise, that's what your brain needs. Lots of clean water, right? All right, so now we've got signaling. Okay, so we're going to talk about signaling in that frontal lobe. Imagine you're taking a math quiz. How do you solve the problem? Well, your frontal lobe gets to work processing the information that you're receiving and applies it to what you already know to come up with the answer. Signaling movement. Do you want to reach for something that's on the table in front of you? Well, your frontal lobe will send the message to your arm and your hand to carry out that movement. But if something blocks the signals to the body, well, no matter how much you want to pick up that glass, you can't. That's where I get frustrated with people who blame the individual. So, alert. You would never put yourself or someone else in danger, right? Well, your frontal lobe controls your behavior so that your actions aren't harmful or dangerous. So, if they can make us have shots and injections and bad food, then your own brain can't alert its warning system. So, apples or oranges, big or small, your frontal lobe helps you to make comparisons and recognize the differences between objects. This is another spot where they want you to not have that strengthened part of your brain, so then that way you're not as aware of what's going on around you. You're easier to control. Mood and feelings. What happens when you're excited, when you're angry? Well, the frontal lobe helps to control your emotions so they stay in balance. Everybody wants you to think that, we're supposed to be happy and excited, and we're supposed to be sad and depressed because you need to feel the feelings. But the reality is they are sending you on roller coaster rides that your brain is not supposed to be experiencing. We're supposed to have homeostasis, which is a nice, calm, easy balance. All right. So if you are moody, if you're having mood swings and you're irrational and all of that stuff, take a closer look at what you're eating. Take a closer look at what you're watching, what you're taking in, what you're listening to, because all of that impacts your supercomputer brain. They want you to have viruses. They want your brain glitching. They want it. Autism, from researchers that I've been going to like webinars and meeting with these neuroscientists that have been studying autism in particular, because that's what my family has been diagnosed as, not me. But I mean, if the shoe fits, who knows, right? Labels are labels. But they're saying that autism is actually inflammation and swelling of the brain that then impacts how they function in society. Makes you wonder if JFK Jr. is onto something. Or is he just feeding people what they want to hear, just enough to stay relevant? I don't know. It's very confusing times. But at least they're admitting it has to do with things that are impacting the brain from the environment, from the food, from the water, the pesticides, the chemtrails that are just clouds. All right. Next, we're going to talk about the parietal lobe, which is right here, okay? This part controls your 5 senses. See here. Yeah, see, so you can kind of see. We're talking about the little blue spot. This parietal lobe helps filter and balance information from your different senses. If you are focused on listening, your sense of touch will be reduced. And I have a master's degree and a bachelor's degree, and I still don't know things. So I know what my realm of expertise is, and I will tell you if something is outside of. I am not a neuroscientist, but I have studied the brain. I have lived and worked with over thousands and thousands and thousands of human beings that have suffered for what everybody calls disabilities, to know that this isn't just fluff. That you are being targeted, and my tribe already knows that. Your brain is your most valuable asset, and your body is your temple to take care of it. All right, ouch. If you hurt yourself, your parietal lobe receives a message from the injured part of your body and lets you know that you are in pain. So I have a very high pain tolerance because, well, life. And so that part of my brain pretty much, I think, has been like damaged from a lot of trauma and abuse, because I can tolerate more pain than the average person. And I'm not saying that that's a good thing. I'm just saying that it's true. Academics, your parietal lobe helps you to read, write, and do math. And if can link a symbol with a meaning and you have the difficulty with schoolwork, the problem might be in your parietal lobe. The other thing is I did many workshops about dyslexia, because me and my family, again, all the labels. What I found out through these seminars from these actual doctors is the human brain is not designed to read. That's why they used hieroglyphics, pictures, symbols, that people understood what they represented, which is why I push, even if a person is able to speak, they might not know what words to use. Like my daughter, who is now 25, who is considered disabled from autism and bipolar and ADHD and whatever labels they want to call it. I don't care. But when she was a child, I would try the old school spanking, and she would laugh at me. My hand would hurt, but she would be laughing. Okay? Pain does not register the same for everybody. I had to find other ways to get her to follow rules and not hurt herself, not hurt other people, because her brain had been under attack. Her soul and spirit had been under attack. And I just want to say, it's bad parenting. Try again. Mama ain't no fool. All right. How many objects? Well, how many fingers am I holding up? Your parietal lobe helps you to recognize the number of things that you can see. Okay. The parietal lobe also helps you when you are on the move. So it helps if you are good at sports. Do you like to dance? Well, thank your parietal lobe. It depends on your motor skills, or it's responsible for your motor skills, both small and large. It helps you with your hand and eye coordination. Like I used to be good at like throwing darts. I was good at like cowboy shoots and throwing like tomahawks, and because I like it. I like being able to hit the target and get it and bam, and it's awesome, right? So, are you able to dribble a basketball? No, I can't dribble a basketball. I can't. I can do some volleyball, but I don't jump. So then it's like, I had a powerful serve, right? But couldn't spike. Couldn't get my booty off the ground, dang gravity. But that part of your brain is what activates your hand and eye coordination. Tying your shoes, threading a needle, these fine motor skills are controlled by your parietal lobe. Like, I bet you didn't even realize the reason why a lot of children are having trouble learning to write is because they don't color when they play when they're little anymore. Like those of us that are old school, we were bored to death and we were like, all right, well, I'm just gonna color. Or we had artistic desires and we were like, I need an outlet, let me color. But kids aren't coloring now because they're playing video games. They're not going outside and getting grounded in nature. So then their nervous system isn't calm enough for them to sit and do these fine motor tasks. And when you would color at, 3 years old, 4 years old, well, you're building up the muscle in your hands and your wrists and your fingers that prepare them for being able to write. So I worked with kindergartners and preschoolers, and my oldest daughter was doing ABA therapy again with the little ones, trying to help them learn how to do the fine motor and gross motor skills because their brains weren't developed yet. And somebody has to teach it. You have to program your child's brain. You can't just let it go on autopilot and think they're gonna learn things through osmosis. No, you have to be intentional. So now some people, you end up giving up on that task and you're just like, let them wear Velcro, let them wear Crocs, right? Let them put on some sandals. But you have to at least have tried to teach them how to do some of these things before you just give them the out, right? So the parietal lobe sends sensory information to other parts of your brain. It says, watch out. Have you ever tripped on a step or bumped into a wall? Well, the parietal lobe helps you to coordinate your body's actions so that you don't run into things. Kind of like a bat, they have to have like sonar where they send out the signal to find out, oh, there's a wall there. I better go around it. Well, your brain also gives signals out to adjust itself in the 3D. That's why I said these are just avatars. You're being puppeteered by your higher self. Mine happens to be in the angelic realms and the ascended master realms and the more cosmic being galactic realms, instead of just like this earthly human realm. All right, give this exercise a try. Touch your finger to your nose. And if you can do that without looking in the mirror, that's your prefrontal lobe. Not prefrontal. Well, part of it. Parietal lobe. I'm sorry, guys. Parietal. That's what it spells. How you pronounce it? I'm not quite sure. Okay. Next, we have the occipital lobe. And that is that little green one. Okay, so that occipital lobe. The occipital lobe is located at the back of the brain. It's the smallest lobe, but that doesn't mean it's unimportant. It receives information from your eyes and translates it into your vision of the world around you. So, what do you see? Well, your occipital lobe receives the information from the retina, which is the part of the eye that receives light and changes it into a signal. That signal is then sent to the occipital lobe, which makes it into an image. Isn't that cool? So the eye collects visual information, and then the occipital lobe makes sense of it. When I was helping work at Camp Buffalo for Boy Scouts, we had a young man there who was colorblind, and so they got him, I think chipped in and were able to buy him these special glasses so he could actually see colors for the first time in his life. And it was just the coolest experience. We loved it. Next, this part of the brain is your depth perception. So the world would seem very flat without the occipital lobe. It helps you to see things in 3 dimensions. That ability is called depth perception. So when you're looking around, right, like it could just look like an image. Like right now, I'm just a flat one-dimensional image that you're watching on a screen, right? But there is depth to who I am and where I'm at in my physical stature, right? You just don't have access to it because you're seeing a flat one-dimensional image of me, okay? So depth perception. Some people don't have depth perception, so when they try to go grab something, they might not know exactly where it is, and so then they have to it may look weird because that part of their brain just hasn't been developed. And so they might need a little assistance of going, oh, go a little bit to the left, and then they can grab that cup, right? You don't always want to rush in and just do it for them because they need practice. I had one student who was a 5th grader who didn't know how to pour his own drinks. And the mom, and he was autistic, but high functioning, he could be taught. But his mom didn't have the patience, and so she just always pour his drinks for him. And I'm like, why won't you give him chances to learn, make mistakes? And she's like, because we can't waste. We're poor enough that we can't waste anything. I can't let him, make mistakes because we need the drink, the milk, the juice, whatever. And it made sense. So I explained to her. I said, how about you do this? Take a big bowl, or take a pan that has a lid, a lip to it so it'll catch. And I said, take that cup, put it inside that bowl or that container, let them pour it in the glass, and if anything spills, it's going to get caught into the bowl. Okay, so you're not wasting it, right? But you're still allowing that child to practice the skill. Because I said, what's going to happen when you die? If you make it so that child is totally dependent on you for everything, and something happens to you, that child can't function. So we have to find creative ways to help them develop these parts of the brain. We also have seeing faces. So you can see your friend coming towards you from down the street. You wave, she waves back. Your occipital lobe has just helped you with an important job, facial recognition. A lot of people going through dementia and Alzheimer's that they don't need to if they understood the brain more, brain chemistry, nutrition, water, exercise, learning and growing is what helps the brain to stay functioning. Because if you don't, they say if you don't use it, you lose it. It is so true. It is so, so true. We become too reliant on technology just to make life easy and simple. And it's not supposed to be easy and simple. It's not. Okay, Next we have is on the move. So again, still talking about the occipital lobe. The occipital lobe doesn't just store the visual information, it shares it with the other parts of the brain that need it for different functions. So we have memories and meaning. So the occipital lobe assigns meaning to the things that you see. It also helps store that meaning in the form of memories. Where did you put the jacket you set down? Your occipital lobe connects visuals with memories. You can see something in your mind, and that will help you remember where it is in real life. Now, if you've been under a lot of stress, then that part of your brain is going to be impacted greatly because it starts to break down your memories. So people will be like, wow, how have you survived everything that you survived? Well, really, my brain has been traumatized so much for almost half a century that it basically just kind of wipes it out and says, lesson learned, moved on. Lesson learned, moved on. Lesson learned, moved on. And for me, I find myself kind of like the Drew Barrymore movie. What was it, 50 First Dates, I think, where like every day is a brand new day. And that's kind of what I do. I'm like, when I go to sleep at night, this body shuts down like a robot. And when I wake back up, it's a brand new day. I'm so excited about what surprises are going to happen today. And so that's how I've survived. Help. I'm not saying it's the right way. I'm just saying that's the way I did it. And then it just becomes a habit. You just start to learn to laugh in the face of the devil and go, yep, they tried again. Didn't work. Ah. All right. Objects in motion. So look into the distance. Is that car that you see coming toward you, or is it standing still? The occipital lobe helps you to understand if an object is in motion. Now, me and my children, I've been blessed when God protects us in vehicles. Because driving isn't a natural thing. That's why they invented vehicles that drive for you. But those of us that don't have the money, don't have the access. So only certain people get the health and the wealth and the treatments and the blessings. But that's all changing. So a lot of times people on the autism spectrum, because that's my area of specialty, they don't have the ability to drive properly because of depth perception, because of the motions of everything going around. If their nervous system is not settled, then all of that sensory overload becomes dangerous because they're being forced to try to drive when their brain and their eyes and their nervous system aren't wired for it. Okay. I know my daughter, they were like constantly, she should be driving. And we did the driving schools. We did practice behind the wheels with multiple different family members. And she just said, Mom, I will never be comfortable driving. I don't want to hurt somebody. I don't want to accidentally hit an animal or maybe a kid that runs out into the street unexpectedly. I don't feel safe driving. And I said, okay, but then we have to understand that you can't just rely on your mom. You can't just rely on sister. Like, you have to be able to navigate public transportation. You have to be able to schedule for an Uber or a transportation that the state provides for people with disabilities. I can't stand that, but it's the term. I say differently abled. So different abilities, because they're spiritually gifted. So that doesn't mean that they're retarded. It just means that their brain is not designed to do some of the 3D things that the people want them to do. They have a different assignment by God. Some people can drive and some people get to be chauffeured. It's just the way it is. On the move. So synesthesia is a rare condition that happens when your occipital lobe is damaged. It causes misalignments in your senses, and while listening to music, a person with synesthesia might see a certain color instead of hearing a sound. We're not crazy. Our brain is just wired differently. And so we can perceive and sense things that others can't because our brain has been developed specifically for different abilities than you. That doesn't make us evil, it doesn't make us wrong, it doesn't make us crazy. No, it's just we're different. That's it. Different. Damage to your occipital lobe might cause you to have visual hallucinations to things that aren't there. You might also be able to write, but not to read. So I don't like when people want to blame the children or blame the adult that never had education in an area. Like, don't make people feel stupid when they don't know something. Educate them, but do it kindly and give them grace and dignity. It's not that hard. Okay, then next part of the brain is the temporal lobe. And that one here is this pink part of the brain. Take a moment to listen. What do you hear close by? Like for me, you can hear I have sound machines that help soothe my nervous system. I like the sound of running water. I love the rain pitter-pattering, right? So I have a sound machine that I use. My kids, they like box fans or fans. They like that white noise from a fan. So different people have different ways of using sound to help calm and soothe their nervous system. And the temporal lobe will help you with detecting the sounds. Your temporal lobe is helping you to make sense of them, and it is located behind your ears. Now, I had to have several surgeries as a child on my ears and my hearing, and military people would come into the school and test my sound, and so I've been studying this since a small child, whether they like it or not. Languages. Do you read or speak more than one language? If you do, your temporal lobe is performing its function. It helps you to recognize the difference between languages. Now, I used to know Spanish. I wouldn't say fluently because I didn't have somebody that I could have conversations with, but I took 5 years of it, so I understood like some things that I could have like functional conversations with. I couldn't really conjugate past tense, future tense. Everything was like present tense. So it was very underdeveloped, but the other person would understand to a degree of what I was trying to say. In fact, there was a time where me and my sister and we were, I think, taking my kids to a park. I don't know, probably an amusement park because we like to have fun with the kids. And there was a Hispanic woman that was trying to order chicken from the guy, and she couldn't speak English, and I could hear her say pollo, pollo, and I was like, oh, she wants chicken. And I felt so proud of myself. I was like, I know that word, chicken. But I just admire those people who can speak multiple languages and be able to really tap into the brain. And it's really cool when you can see kids that can just flip in and out of languages. It's just awesome. But that's part of your temporal lobe. That temporal lobe also helps you with forming words. So there's a special part of your temporal lobe called the Wernicke's area. And it's part of your brain that helps you to understand what people are saying. And there's another area called the Broca's area, and it helps you to produce the words. So both of these areas work together to help you communicate. There's a lot of people that are like, oh, they'll never talk. And I'm like, you just hext them. Please don't do that. What you speak happens. So don't talk negatively over your children. Breathe life into everybody, okay? Even if it's difficult, over time, baby steps still get them where they need to go. So I have worked with autistic individuals, Down syndrome, all kinds of differently abled bodies that people had given up on and said, oh, they can never do that. I can never do that. Like, just watch. Just watch. So, we also have the temporal lobe takes responsibility over your sense of smell. And so the temporal lobe isn't just connected to your hearing. The olfactory cortex is located here. It controls your sense of smell, and it helps you to distinguish between pleasant and unpleasant smells. So that's her, the dirty socks. And that's why sometimes autistic people get negatively seen, because they don't really pay attention to their body odor, or they're not fully aware of, well, if I didn't wash my hair, it's greasy and that bothers other people. To them, they could care less. They're like, whatever. They're like cavemen, right? They're like, they're more primitive in some of their thought processes. But instead of judging them and just condemning them and say, oh, they'll never get it. No, they just need a hand holding through the process, and they need the gentle parenting for that part of the brain to be developed. That self-awareness of like, oh, I guess I do need to shower more than just when my mom's yelling at me, forcing me, because she keeps sticking deodorant in my cargo pants whenever I leave the house. Oh, poor kids. Fight or flight. Much of your body's limbic system is housed in your temporal lobe. That's the system that controls your emotional reaction and your fight or flight. And that's what they try to hijack. They try to hijack your nervous system every chance they get to keep you in flight, freeze, fawn, all of that. So much of your body's system is housed in the, much of the body's limbic system is housed in the temporal lobe. And that's your ability to protect yourself in case of a threat or danger. See, it's taken me 49 years to realize that the people around me were intentionally triggering me. Intentionally. So just imagine what these kids are going through when they don't comprehend. Why do you think suicide is so high right now? Okay. Making memories. What's happening to you right now? What happened to you last year? Your temporal lobe is responsible for both your consciousness, which is your awareness of the present, and your long-term memory. So, this is where they try to get you into states of anxiety and depression. Depression means that you are thinking about your past and mourning losses or perceived losses, because really, rejection is God's protection. Just remember that. But you also then, are anxious about what's happening in the future, right? So I'm no longer being depressed about the traumas and the stuff that's been happened in the past. And they want us angry because that is another form of fear. And they want us sad because that's another form of fear. And so they want us to be afraid of the future, and really God's got nothing but beautiful things planned for you. So there is nothing to fear except fear itself. And that's what they try to get us. They try to hijack our brains. It's time we take them back. All right. Are you good at games? What about following directions? Your temporal lobe is in charge of activities that require sequencing or steps. It helps you to remember the order of actions. And if you have trouble remembering the word for something, your temporal lobe is working to solve the problem. So my daughter, when she was little, she was getting dressed and it was summertime. And so I asked her, I was like, what would you like to wear? And she said, I want long pants up. Now, me, being an expert in communication and behavior, especially of the neurodivergent types in the disabled community, I knew what she was talking about, but I needed to teach her the proper words. She wanted shorts. She didn't know the word shorts. She had heard it before, but her brain's storing abilities was all scrambled. So word retrieval, it was kind of like having old school card catalogs where everything was alphabetical and organized and neat, and it would be stored in your brain that way. Well, today's society isn't doing that. It's flooding them with information, and they're just like shoving it in spots, and then when it comes time to use that information, the brain is scattered in its organization, and then it's got to retrieve it, and they have to sit there and they'll be like, I remember, I remember we talked about this. Why can't I remember it, And then they beat themselves up when it's not their fault. This part of the brain also helps you with processing sound. So are there certain sounds that you don't like? Like my daughter didn't like the sound of toilets flushing, especially really powerful ones, like those automatic ones now where you just stand up and it's like whoosh. I'll be like, I get it, kid. I'm so sorry. There are no other toilets. They think that this is the way to go. I don't know how to help you. So, that creates difficulties for those of us that are so sensitive. And that doesn't make us defective, okay? Let me just put that out there. Are there certain sounds that you don't like? Maybe it's the screech of a car engine or even a certain kind of music. Like, I'm very eclectic in music, but I cannot handle screamo and like rappers like I'm like, that's not music. That's like satanic stuff that is craziness. So, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to judge. I'm just saying for me, my personal, just me. Somebody else wants to watch screamo and whatever, have at it. But all that is damaging your brain, in my opinion. Your temporal lobe is responding to the sounds around you. It helps you deciding which sounds that you like and which sounds that you don't like. Me and my family, we like tranquility. We like peace. We like calm. We like ease. And then we throw in some fun and liven things up, but we don't like the constant stimulation and overproduction of sounds and lights and That's designed to damage the brain. And we're not stupid. All right, next we have is the brain stem, which is this part right here. If your brain is like a computer, the brain stem is like the hard drive. It's the place where messages are sent to the rest of your brain and back to your body. Now, I had an aunt who had the swelling of her brain stem caused doctors to have to remove part of her skull, which left this part uncovered, essentially, because her brain stem was so swollen that the skull was damaging it, so they had to remove that part. And so I think she did a lot of different jobs. Like, I know she was a janitor, custodian at a school, and then she became the bus driver, but then she couldn't, because now if a kid were to hit her in the back of the head, she could die, right? So again, I have a lot of personal experience as well as professional. Your beating heart. One of the most basic functions of your body is controlled by your brain stem, your heartbeat. The brain stem works with your cardiovascular system to make sure that it remains ready and stays ready. Your blood pressure has to be exactly right, not too high, not too low. Your brain system keeps it in check by monitoring signals from the nerves in your arteries. And then breathing. What's the most basic thing that your body does? Something you do without even thinking about it? Breathing. The brain stem coordinates with your respiratory system to make sure that the flow of air coming in and out of your lungs works properly. So, a lot of times, not only do they target your brain and your heart, but they will also target your lungs. They want you sitting. They want you stagnant. They want you staring at screens, because that is damaging to your vessel. But it keeps you as a slave. And I'm here to help free my people by teaching you so you can learn how to control your own supercomputer instead of everybody else trying to control it for you. All right, the brainstem also helps you with body basics. The basic functions of your body, breathing, heartbeat, and awareness, all involve muscles in your body. The brainstem coordinates the involuntary muscle movements, the ones you do without even thinking about them. That includes your response to stimuli, such as the contraction and expansion of the pupils in your eyes. Eyes are the windows to the soul, and you can learn a lot about a person just by eye contact. Because people don't like it. It's intimidating. I had no idea how intimidating, but autistic people who are cosmic beings who know what's going on, they learn a lot from eye contact. Body movements. When you take a drink or eat, you swallow. Sounds easy, but it's actually a complicated series of movements that brings your food from your mouth to your esophagus and down your digestive tract. The brainstem coordinates these movements. Now, my family has been known by doctors to have people that have where they asphyxiate on food because they either take too big of a bites, eating too fast, not chewing it up enough, because you really should chew up your food like over 100 times until it's like a liquid before you swallow. And so kids don't know that. They're like, oh my God, this is so good. Like it's just shoveling it in. Well, they end up choking, right? It happened with my family in the generations before me. It didn't happen with me, but it happened with my daughter and my granddaughter. We would always have to have an aspirator because you would have to take that baby, put her upside down and slap her back because she would eat something too big, too fast, and then we'd have to like solve the problem. So we learned how to do a lot of things, trial and error, because we weren't given knowledge that we should have been given. And so that's why my passion is making sure that this knowledge doesn't die with me and that it continues on, not only in my children, as well as over the probably at least 100,000 people that I have helped, if not more. Because this knowledge needs to be continued on. We have the dying arts, and I want to make sure that people can maintain their freedom, learn how to be healthier. And so I'm going to continue. Regulating your sleep. Are you a sound sleeper? If your brainstem gets the credit, it's responsible for sending your muscles a message that it's time to relax. They want your sleep cycle to be dysregulated. They want you not sleeping properly. There is a circadian rhythm that is a natural rhythm to the human vessel, which requires us to be getting up way earlier so we can be up for sunrise and get that pinnacle of sunlight directly into our eyes. A lot of the reasons why we're wearing glasses is because they've intentionally set us up to lose our sight. And for 49 years, because your body can self-heal, but they have intentionally increased the strength of my prescription, whether I needed it or not, to now I'm reliant on these to see, because everything around me is like fuzzy. So I'm looking into natural ways to try to get my eyesight back, because I know that Jesus was able to help a blind man see, so I know it's possible. And if anybody knows how to do that and would love to swap services, I can help you out, you help me out, I would love that, because I would love to be able to see again without the glasses now that I understand what was being done to me. The brain also has the sights, sounds, and senses. How to know what's going on around you. How do you respond to the sounds, sights, the temperature, and other stimuli, such as shivering when you are cold? Your brainstem is collecting that information and sending it to the correct parts of your brain and body for processing. So you can have two people in the same environment, and one can say it's freezing, and the other one can say, well, I'm kind of burning up. Because every person is different, and so their internal system functions on a different level. I just learned to always wear layers or have like sweaters and jackets of different material. So then that way, if it's just a little chilly, I got just a light thing. If it's really cold, I got a heavier thing, right? If I'm going out in the blazing winter, then I got really heavy stuff to keep me insulated. Because my iron levels and nutrient deficiencies fluctuate my internal system. So why would I punish everybody else around me? I used to tease my oldest daughter because she always wanted it ice cold everywhere, and I'd be like, girl, you could have penguins as pets in your apartment. Like, and so we all just have very different body chemistry. I'm kind of like Drew Barrymore in like Firestarter, where it's like the heat just like radiates, so I'm fine. And my dad could go out into like a blizzard in shorts, and like he would always have a towel around his neck for his sweat, and it would just we would all laugh because he'd be barefoot in the snow talking to you, and you're like, Dad, don't you want to put a shirt on, some shoes on? It's like 10 below. So everybody's different, and so all you can do is control yourself in said situations. Once food is in your digestive system, your body's enzymes need to break it down. The brainstem sends the signals to your gut to get the process going. I also didn't know, because I used to weigh 330 pounds, and now I'm down. I've lost half of myself, at least. But what I didn't realize is they teach us a lot of wrong things about how to eat and how to, take in nutrients. And so you're not supposed to eat and drink at the same time, because your stomach will then get stretched out, and then the digestive enzymes get altered because you've put water or soda or juice in there. And so sometimes that's why people have upset stomachs. I used to get what they would call, when I was a kid, sour stomach. That's what I would have. My granny would, know homeopathic ways to help, but it would just basically be that I ate something that didn't go with something else. Off the top of them, I'm just making this up. It would be like drinking milk while eating an orange, right? Like the milk and the acid in the orange, like, would chemically counter or react in the stomach with the digestive juices. And I'm just using that as an example because I didn't understand, and they didn't understand how that impacts, in the gut enzymes, right? So then I would be belching up. It would smell like rotten eggs, like water from a well, it'd be like, oh, well, because I ate maybe eggs with, buttermilk or something, right? Like things that really shouldn't go together in the system, and when it's digesting, then there's also a thing about like you're not supposed to eat like fruits and then meat, because then it like rots the meat, because the meat's sitting in there and the body has to first digest the fruit, and so then the meat is kind of like rotting. Well, there's a lot to it, right? So contact a nutrition for more exact information. I had to learn this because my kids had food sensitivities. My one daughter, they told me, was allergic to corn and any type of corn syrup, corn flour, and corn is in everything. Fructose is corn, so nutrition, sleep, exercise, water, sunshine. Okay, the cerebellum. That is this part here, which is by the brainstem. This is stand up, sit down, lean to one side or the other. Your cerebellum's on the job. It's located at the back of the brain, just above the start of your spinal cord. Skills. Can you play a musical instrument? Well, I played trombone from third or fourth grade all the way to my freshman year of college, so that's quite a while. Do you know how to ride a bike? When different parts of your body are working together, your cerebellum is functioning properly. Balance. When you shift your weight from one leg to another, it's because your cerebellum senses your posture needs adjusting, and it helps your muscles to perform the actions. So that's where I do have a yoga program for children, I also had the yoga program for adults and the elderly, because they all have different needs and they're on different ranges of flexibility and movements, right? Like with the elderly, I do more chair yogas where it's just glorified stretching and we have fun and we smile and it's a good time. With the adults, because I used to have a friend who owned her own yoga studio. It was called the Cheese Shed, and I helped her establish it. And we were running for about 2 years, and so she would do like the adult classes, and then I would assist her with some of those classes, and then I would help her with the kids classes that she would have on Saturdays. And again, we had a lot of autistic individuals that were coming for calming of the nervous system, as well as the socialization and the education that they got from us. So I do have a children's program as well. The cerebellum means little brain in Latin, and it's called that because of the cerebrum. And it also helps with coordination. When you blink your eyes, hold a fork, or use a pair of scissors, your cerebellum is coordinating your efforts. Now, when I was going through the training to get certified to be a yoga instructor, I was going hard, right? And so I ended up like pinching a nerve to where I wasn't even able to lift this arm to hold a fork because I was going too hard, right? And so I had to learn to be more gentle in my approach to healthy lifestyle changes, instead of seeing it as like, this is my last chance to survive. Oh my God, I gotta do this. It would be like, slow down, baby steps, little by little, by little, by little, you'll get there. All right, tiny but mighty. The cerebellum is small, about the size of the adult's fist, but it contains half the neurons in the whole brain. While it doesn't always initiate movements, it organizes them. It also plays a role in your mood and your ability to focus. So step by step. Let's say you're trying to learn some new dance moves. Your cerebellum will help you to try new actions so that you can finally get the sequence right. It's responsible for the trial and error movements you make when you are learning to do something new. I remember from band camp how we used to, because we performed like in the Disney Main Street parades, the Chicago Labor Day parades. I performed with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra a few times. I would do musicals. I marched with the Indiana State Marching Sycamores. I've performed in street bands in Kokomo, Cocoa Beach. In Florida. Like, there's been a lot of big things. I've performed in the Colts halftime shows, Brickyard 400s. Like, we've done a lot of things. And that teacher was like a drill sergeant military. Like, she would have us out there doing drills no matter the rain. Like, seriously, like military boot camp. We would have to wear the heavy wool uniforms in the middle of summer to prepare us to have the resilience for the heat, because we would have people that would get heat stroke and they would have to be just kindly escorted off because she wanted those gold medals. Then she'd be like having people that would walk along us in the parades, and if somebody fainted, then they just gently moved them out of the way, out of the parade, and loaded them up on the vehicle that was following us. The left brain, right brain. In most parts of the brain, the other thing was that she would make us glide, which would put your toes up like military style gliding. I get so mad. But it was good conditioning and good on teaching me discipline. So torture doesn't always have to be a bad thing. It's a perception. I can look back and go, I gained a lot from that experience. I would never do it again, but I gained a lot. So, in most parts of the brain, the left lobe controls the right side of your body and the right lobe controls the left. In the cerebellum, each side is controlled by the same lobe. The left controls the left and the right controls the right. So in this case, the cerebellum controls the same side, which is different from the cerebrum, which was the opposite side. See, the body and the brain is fascinating. Fascinating. Learn about yourself. Learn of thyself. Happy or sad? Can you tell if someone is happy, sad, or mad? Experts believe the cerebellum helps you to recognize emotion in others. The problem we have with this now is we have so many people who know how to use emotions and acting, really good acting. So just because they're showing you tears and remorse and I'm so sorry, watch their pattern. Because people can fake the funk really, really good. So learning how to be happy or sad, that's why autistic people just become deadpan emotionally over time and just stare at you like deer in the headlights and studying you, like, because we can see past the masks. So that we're like, you're not really sorry, but you're crying like you're sorry. Interesting. We got neurons. Your brain relies on nerve cells or neurons for the information it needs. Neurons bring messages to the brain to help us move, talk, see, and hear. Your brain's wiring. When you want to turn on a light, you flip the switch. This activates a current that travels down a wire to a bulb, which illuminates. And in a similar way, your brain is wired. When your body wants to send a message to part of the body, it will transmit energy through the neurons. We are just energy in a carbon-based vessel. That's it. Your brain relays information back to other parts of your body. Your hand moves, your mouth speaks. All the systems of the body are working together. Complex messages. Neurons receive input from your senses, and when your nose smells a pleasant scent, the information is sent to the brain for processing. Neurons are part of the body's central nervous system. They function a lot like a computer or electrical networks. Neurons are always changing. In my spine, they would have to do outpatient surgeries, and I would do all kinds of physical therapies and all kinds of nerve. They would do stimulation with electricity. They would do ice, all this stuff. One of the things that they would do is basically they would have this robotic needle. I'd be laying in the operating room, and they would take this robotic needle, and the doctor would be sitting at a computer, not even looking at the needle, which I found fascinating, because I would watch her at the computer navigating the robotic needle over my spine, and then they would put the needle into the base of my spine in the L3, L4, and L5 section, and they would cauterize the nerves. Well, that's burning the nerves. They kill those nerves because the pain signals would be continuous no matter what I was doing, that they would have to then cauterize those nerves so they would stop sending the pain signal. And now I know about energetics and spiritual warfare and how people can tap into your sacral and stuff. And now I'm like, well, no wonder I was in constant pain all the time from all the ish. So neurons are always changing, because they would also tell me, well, we'll cauterize these nerves, but when they grow back, they're going to grow back and they're going to still misfire. So you'll have to come back, right? So then I'm like, so you're not actually solving the problem. Like, so neurons are dynamic. Your body is always producing new ones and eliminating the old ones. The average human brain contains 100 billion neurons. There are more neurons in the human nervous system than the stars in the Milky Way galaxy. Neurons come in many shapes and sizes. To picture what they might look like, imagine a tree with roots, a trunk, and branches. A neuron has the similar structure. So there's the pictures of the neurons. Synapses. So between those two neurons, there's a space called a synapsis. It's like a bridge that carries impulses from one neuron to the other. This is how the brain communicates an action to the muscle that completes the action. So the synapses are at the very edge, right? And the soma is like the body or the trunk of the tree. It's where the nucleus of the neuron is located. And nucleus is the center. That's the brain of that. The electrical signal is what goes from one neuron to the next. And the receiving end is called the axon. Those are like roots. They send messages when the neuron wants to talk to another neuron. The dendrites are like branches of the tree, and they receive the messages from the other neurons. And believe it or not, humans are like this. We can use telepathy, we can use metaphysical stuff, the quantum field, to connect and communicate the same way that neurons can within your own brain. It's called the macro and the micro. Macro would be how we, as everything being all encompassing, all as one, God in every single thing, right? Because God will never have you look into the face of someone that he doesn't love. So we are electrical current carriers, right? So the thought patterns, everything is held in a collective consciousness, and then it comes down in through your nervous system. So that's how people can hijack your supercomputer brain. Okay, the hardest part for me is learning how to stop them from hijacking the brain. And if you want to know more, you can reach out for a free consultation at homewinds.consulting@gmail.com. If you don't talk directly to me, it's a scam artist, because I have had people that have hacked my devices. Welcome to digital media and all the internet and ChatGPT. AI. We don't need AI. We are AI. Okay. It's all in your head. Your brain is surrounded by layers of bone and tissue that help to keep it safe. The cranium, that is the part of the skull, right? Protects everything. The part of your skull that protects the brain is called the cranium. There are 8 bones of the cranium that fuse together like puzzle pieces by the time that you are a toddler. Babies have what's called a soft spot on the top of their head, which is right here. And if you hit that soft spot, they die because you just killed their brain. Some of these babies are having babies and they don't know this stuff. The middle arachnoid layer looks like a spider web. Arteries and veins run on the top of it. 3 layers of membrane protecting the brain make up meanings. The inner layer is the pia mater. The middle is the arachnoid, and the outer layer is the dura mater. The thin pia mater, which is this, I don't know if you can see it, there's like this purple tiny border, okay? Lets the blood pass through to the brain to support all of the functions. Then the dura mater is the thicker layer that attaches to your skull. And that one, they are pointing, let's see here, to the blue. So that one is a thicker one here, this blue one instead. And it says this is a thicker outer layer that attaches to your skull. Because when people get a concussion, right, that's usually caused from the skull and the brain kind of getting jostled around and kind of getting disconnected. There are 12 nerves that are inside your cranium, and they control your senses. There we go. Um, I really like this book series because they have a lot, and I'm sorry that it's backwards because of the way I'm recording, but they also have other topics of interest: dragons, volcanoes, T-Rex. I really like how they break things down and give you such valuable information, but in a child-friendly way. I have another book that I'll be doing, which is about the Inside Out movies, which talks about emotions and the brain. And so that's going to be my next video. I am so grateful that you were here, that you stuck through, me rambling on and on about the brain, which is something is one of my hyper focuses. So if I am autistic, I guess spirituality, the ascension process, the brain, the human development, and societal needs, helping people tap into their divinity, because that is done through the brain and through your nervous system. So I am just so grateful that you're interested in learning more about yourself. And if you need any help with problem solving in your life, go ahead and reach out and I'll see what I can do to help. Until next time, I will hope that you have a great day and talk to you later.